Just to get started, I just want to welcome everyone. We're really glad you're here. This is our course 1 for home modifications for better patient outcomes. This is a series that we offer. Before we begin, I do want you to drop in the Q&A where you're joining us from and your role. We love seeing the mix of clinicians in the room. So drop your information in the Q&A and where you're joining from and your role, please. Just a quick introduction. I'm Amy Reed, and I'm joining you here from Denver, Colorado. And I've spent the last 15 years in the home access space, essentially for the same company, partnering with clinical teams really to help individuals of all ages and all stages, I like to say, maintain that safety and independence at home. So I'll be facilitating today, and we will have Aaron joining us from the Adapted Show Home in Denver, and he will be demonstrating everything that we're talking about today, which is really an overview of home accessibility and access. So today's course does focus on really empowering that independence through comprehensive home modifications across the lifespan. So in our end of year survey that everyone did. Thank you for doing that. This course was rated the most impactful, so we're excited to bring it back with updated insights and live demonstrations. Important to talk about here. So before we officially dive in, just a quick note on CEUs and certificates. So to qualify for your CEU credit, you'll need to attend today for a minimum of 35 minutes, and then you need to submit your request within 30 days. You'll receive a follow-up email with all of these instructions. We have also, I'm going to clap hands because this is really good news. We have simplified the process, and this is based on that year-end survey as well. So you'll now use what we're calling a self-serve form. And once that's completed, you'll automatically receive your certificate by email. So you'll no longer need to log into a separate portal. That was one of the biggest pieces of feedback from last year, and we're pleased to make it easier. You will have 2 options this year. You can get the formal CEU certificate for $17 or a free certificate of attendance. We introduced the $17 fee simply to just cover our hard accreditation costs, and that is the only purpose of the charge. We are pleased to offer this education. We believe it's important, and we want to keep doing it. So we want to remain accessible to everyone. So let's dive in. Most people want to age in place, but falls are one of the biggest barriers to that. We know that targeted home mobility interventions reduce falls, and falls can account for over a quarter of readmissions. So when we talk about home accessibility, we're not just talking about upgrades, we're talking about outcomes. And this is really why it matters. And when we talk about accessibility, as far as statistics, stairs are one of the most common and most underestimated risk factors in the home. So each year, around 1 million people are treated in the emergency room for falls down stairs alone. And for older adults, these falls often result in fractures, especially hip fractures, which can significantly change independence and long-term outcomes. We also know that more falls occur in homes than anywhere else. So when we're talking about risk, we're not talking about dramatic accidents. We're talking about those everyday routines. So going up the stairs or in and out of bed, doing the laundry, coming in from the garage. So just think about your own home and all those things that you do every day. Those are normal routines. So when you pair that with the CDC statistic that 1 in 4 adults over 65 falls each year, the importance of early environmental intervention becomes really, really clear. This is where those small proactive adjustments can prevent major life disruptions. So this data is new that I wanted to introduce this year. And it's pretty sobering. So since 2000, death rates from accidental falls have tripled in the United States. So even when you adjust for age, meaning this isn't just because our population is getting older, the trend continues to climb. So in 2000, the age-related death rate from falls was just under 5 per 1,000 or 100,000 people. By 2023, it reached over 11 per 100,000 people. This tells us really something important. So falls are not only an isolated event, they are now a growing public health crisis. For older adults especially, a fall is often that tipping point, and it can lead to a hospitalization, that loss of independence, a readmission, or even a long-term care placement. And the good news is the majority of these falls happen at, or not happen at home, but the majority of these falls actually are preventable. And that's where home safety and modifications come in. And we really call it preventable healthcare. They reduce the risk and help people age in place and have that dignity to do that. And the key is if we intervene early before the first fall, we can really change this trajectory. And that's the opportunity in front of us. So what does this really mean for all of us? So falls are increasing, and not just because people are aging. Even when researchers adjust for age, the rate has more than doubled. And that tells us this isn't inevitable changing, it's environment and risk going unaddressed. And many of you are the first to see it. You walk into a home before the crisis, you work with a patient before they discharge and have that crisis. You notice the steep stairs when you're in the home, you notice the bathroom without support, and maybe you hear that from a patient that they don't have that. Basically, a patient or a client that says, I'm fine, is a challenge. And that's where, things become a limitation inside the home. Really, something systemic is happening. People are living alone longer. They're managing more conditions, taking more medications, and staying in homes that weren't designed at all for longevity. So again, the encouraging part is that falls are preventable. When we addressed home safety early, we can protect that independence, we can preserve assets, and we can prevent that family crisis. So across the patients or the clients that you're treating or serving, most of the safety concerns inside the home fall within 3 main categories. So first is the access to the home. Even the 1 or 2 steps at the entry can completely change discharge plans or longevity in the home. Second is those level changes. So stairs inside the home, as we talked about, is one of the biggest risk factors. Especially, if someone has balance that's compromised or endurance that's compromised or taking medications. Third, we'll talk about the bathroom. This is where the majority of injuries happen. Stepping over tub walls, unsafe transfers, a lack of the most basic thing, which is grab bars. So when we conduct what we call a home safety consultation, we're evaluating all of this really through your lens that you're talking about or treating people with to discharge from a hospital or rehab. So this framework really helps simplify what can otherwise feel overwhelming for families. When we talk about that home consultation, the purpose is really simple. We are looking at 2 primary areas. 2 primary areas, which is really that accessibility and that safety. And accessibility, we really look at is, can they move through the home? And then safety is, can they move without risk? So a consultation isn't about selling a piece of equipment. It's really about identifying those environmental barriers before they become a crisis. And often it's those small modifications that make the biggest difference, like I mentioned, grab bars, in preserving independence. So what we're doing during a consultation is looking at the home through the same lens that you might look at, safety, function, discharge readiness. We identify the barriers and recommend solutions that are going to align with your goals, with the client you're serving or the patient you're discharging and their therapy goals. And we want to help those people that are aging in place through this consultation as well. So let me briefly share who we are and how we support you. Lifeway Mobility is a home access company, but more importantly, we see ourselves as an extension of your care team and not just a vendor. We focus on that safe discharge and aging in place, and we address those environmental barriers that can impact the safety and the function. We provide those personalized in-home consultations. Typically, if needed, we can schedule that within 24 or 48 hours. We have professional trained installers, and that can often, if needed, be done within 7 days. And this really reduces the risk of delays and support that continuity of care. We work collaboratively with therapists and care teams. We are licensed, insured, and highly rated with 4.8 out of 5 stars with over, I think it's now probably around 8,000 reviews. So our goal really is simple. As a home access provider, we want to align that home environment with the plan of care or the client that you've already established. With that foundation, I am going to transition and stop sharing my screen and have Erin join us live from the Adapted Show Home. Erin, are you there?
We are here, Amy. Hopefully everybody can hear me out there. And that's right.
Welcome.
My name is Aaron. I am on the patio here of Denver's Adapted Show Home, one of the best show homes in the nation for things related to accessibility and home adaptations to make it a little bit easier to stay at home, age in place, and overcome some of those injuries when we're getting back home. So we're going to talk about several of the areas and some key equipment that can be utilized in and around the home in order to make access possible, especially for those who want that independence, certainly. So the first thing I want to talk about is ramp systems. So ramps are very commonly used to overcome the issue of having several steps that lead into the house. This is super common in the Denver metro area, but also super common nationally where, maybe you're able to get into your garage, but then from the garage floor into the main floor of the house, you might have 1 to 5 steps that you have to ambulate up in order to actually get in the home. And Amy, to your point, that can really jam up the discharge process if we don't have a clear strategy on getting the patient into the home. And I know that clinicians see this all the time where a home just isn't ready. It's not set up for that patient to be discharged. What's so great about these modular ramp systems is that we can warehouse them. And because we can warehouse them, there's really no delay in having the parts and pieces necessary to install that ramp. Now, ramps are going to be safe so long as we follow a couple of general guidelines. So always with a ramp, we want to make sure that we have a handrail. And you'll notice this handrail in particular is a dual handrail. We've got this top handrail portion. That's definitely where you're going to grab onto. But then we have this bottom portion of handrail. That's going to prevent us from being able to roll off the ramp. Also key to preventing somebody from rolling off the ramp, from their mobility equipment from sliding off the ramp, is going to be this little kick plate on the sides of the ramp itself. This kick plate prevents wheel slippage off the side of the ramp. And so just super important to think about those two details, this middle rail and that little kick plate on the bottom of the ramp on the side to prevent that wheel slippage. Now, generally speaking, when you purchase a ramp system, or maybe you're building a ramp system, we want to make sure, for sure, that not only the person, but their equipment will be able to pass through that ramp. So we're always going to install something that is at minimum 36 inches or 3 feet clear width on the ramp. Clear width, meaning from one touch point to the next, I've got that 36-inch space. That way a person in a manual wheelchair or a power wheelchair will surely fit into the ramp area. Likely the single most important thing in a ramp installation is going to be the slope of the ramp. How steep is that ramp at installation? And that measurement of how steep that ramp is going to be a huge function of whether or not a person is going to be willing to use that ramp. And I'm going to display that in just a second. But just so that we all know, a proper ramp installation for self-ambulation. It's cool. Super awesome car just drove by. Love that. So a proper ramp slope will require a foot of ramp for every inch in rise. This is the ADA standard for ramp slope. A foot of ramp material for every inch in rise. And so if you have, say, like we have set up, a 16-inch rise, the proper amount of ramp is going to be 16 feet of ramp. And this is going to be the allowable slope for someone to comfortably self-ambulate in a ramp. And I'll show you what I mean in a wheelchair. Then I'll show you what I mean. So I'm going to sit down in this wheelchair here. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go up this ramp, which is the proper ramp slope. Just kind of identify a little bit of what I'm feeling. So when I'm going up a proper ramp slope, one thing I notice is that there's not a tremendous amount of pressure pulling me back. It's very easier for me to just kind of slowly ascend the ramp, and I can kind of take a break without too much pressure. Also, my back is fully back into the backrest of the wheelchair. One thing you're going to notice when we try to go down the steeper side of this ramp is that I'm going to end up doing a lot of core to keep myself forward. Whereas now I can lean back and I feel no sensation that the wheelchair itself is going to tilt back, which is quite alarming. So that was me going up the proper slope ramp, which is a 1 to 12, 16 feet of ramp to get up these 16 inches. On this side, we have exactly half that. So exactly half the ADA recommendation. So we're got a 8-foot ramp section here going up 16 inches. And the first thing I'm going to do is go down this. And it's much the sensation of like an amusement park ride, where once I'm at the peak of this ramp, there's anxiety here, because once I start to go, I'm sliding down the ramp. I didn't get to turn my wheels. There was no stability in my ability to descend that ramp. That is terrifying. And if the goal is empowering independence, somebody is going to experience this anxiety getting in and out of their house on a super steep ramp. They're just not going to go into their garden. They're not going to do, walks around the neighborhood. They are going to be isolated if we do not take care to make sure that that ramp is a proper slope. And then going up is quite terrifying. So I have to lean way forward to feel like I'm not going to tilt back. And it's very hard for me to push these wheels up, and then I finally crest the top of the ramp. That's extremely uncomfortable to do. And frankly, you just wouldn't do that alone. You'd have to have caregiver support. But that doesn't eliminate the pressure on people. If we have clinicians and home caregivers helping somebody go up and down a ramp, that pressure then is now put on them to stabilize that person as they're pushing him up the ramp, or try to slow the descent of that person as they're descending the ramp. And so I cannot stress enough how important it is to utilize enough ramp material for those heights to make sure that we're getting as close as we can to that ADA recommendation. What's great about modular ramps like this is that the parts and pieces that we're able to warehouse allow us to install these in numerous configurations. We can utilize the ramp material to make turns within a garage, to go to a platform, say, make a complete turn, maybe do what we call a switchback, where the ramp actually makes a 180-degree turn back on itself. These modular aluminum ramps are great for doing that. Now, I will say, as I descend this properly sloped ramp, I'm able to stop. There's no wheel slippage. It's very easy for me to descend. It's not a high anxiety experience. And you can just tell when I was going down that other side of the ramp, my wheels didn't rotate one time. It was just sliding down the ramp. And these ramps are textured to prevent that from happening. But there's only so much you can do once that force of gravity overtakes that force of friction. And so, with that said, it is very common where we get into a situation where there's just too much necessary ramp material in order to safely or efficiently install it in an area, which will bring me to my next device. But it looks like we have a question.
You just are going into the question because it was like, what if the question is, what do you do when you can't do a ramp because you don't have the space or the slope is too high? So it sounds like you're already addressing that.
That's right.
Perfect
So,
timing.
if I've got 5 steps going into my house, that gets to be a rise that can easily be 35 to 40 inches in rise from the garage level to the entry of the house. Well, it's very unreasonable. There's the trash truck. It's very unreasonable that we're going to be able to install a 40-foot long ramp plus all of the necessary platforms in a garage. So when that's the case, a home access specialist like myself is going to recommend something else. And that something else is likely going to be a vertical platform lift. Vertical platform lift is going to take up about a 5x5 area. That is because we're no longer ascending or descending on an incline. Instead, what we're doing is we're ascending and descending perfectly vertically up and down. Now, these platform lifts are great because oftentimes they're battery powered, and the mains power in the house, the outlet in the garage, simply charges those batteries. So much like a ramp where even if the power's out, you can still use a ramp, that can be true of a vertical platform lift as well. And you'll notice here with the push of a button, which can be a big paddle where I don't need a lot of dexterity, the platform just goes perfectly down. On the back side here, I have a ramp that actually unfolds as the platform is going up and down. So as the platform's going up, this actually comes up and blocks my ability to roll off of the platform. So very safe that way. Love that. And it also means I don't need to actually excavate my garage and create a pit, which is a concern of many people. Instead, I have a true ADA sloped ramp, 12 inches of ramp right here for the 1 inch in rise, or 1 foot for that lifting height. I've got to roll into my platform here. This platform would come standard in a 3-foot clear wide by 4-foot deep, but it can also be ordered deeper and wider to accommodate larger chairs, and a typical weight capacity of 750 pounds. So most people in most chairs will be able to utilize a vertical platform lift. And so this equipment here is going to be the space-saving device when you have a situation where there's just not enough room in a garage or perhaps at a patio in order to design the ramp that would need to be put in place for the rise that we have. We're going to talk about stair lifts here in just a moment, but there are outdoor stair lifts as well. So keep that in mind. That may be the solution. Also, we have a situation where we need to get in and out of the house with some level of safety. We can utilize the stair lift. So we'll talk about that in just a moment. What I want to do is invite you guys this way. And we're going to take a look inside the adapted show home. Before we get there, though, I just want to point something out. You probably see these all over town, these door openers with the push buttons. Not everybody knows that these can be easily installed in a residence. It's very common to install a door opener on a residential door. We do a lot of that. And that can just make the process of getting in and outside of the home much simpler for someone trying to ambulate a wheelchair. These door openers can be operated both with a push button, a remote control, an app on your phone, a verbal command. These are all ways that you can actuate a door opener. I'm so proud to have you guys now in the adapted show home, and welcome, because we are very proud of this. And we're going to be able to display a number of very cool items inside the show home today. And it looks like we have another question.
Yes, Aaron, we've got Nancy Keller is asking about how do you determine if this is about ramps, if the concrete is the correct PSI?
That's a great question. So in terms of utilizing a ramp on concrete, especially in a garage, it's going to be there. There are some code about garage foundations. Typically, it's going to be 3,500 psi requirement. The ramps, the way that their foot plates are designed, as well as the vertical platform lifts, the way that load is spread, will always comply with the structure of a garage foundation. Now, a home assessment is necessary because there are times where we might be in the home looking at a garage, and maybe a garage floor is in such disrepair that we have to recommend a repair to that floor prior to be able to doing the install of the equipment. However, we are able to displace that weight in situations where, say, we install a ramp that has to travel over a lawn, maybe onto a concrete walkway, and maybe to a driveway. We're able to disperse that weight, especially on soil, by using things like those stones, those stone plates. We've often utilized those. The foot plates for the ramp already come with a decent surface area to disperse that weight, so you don't experience sinking into the floor. And it looks like we have another question.
Yeah, just to add on to that, I think Nancy was also asking, I kind of interpreted it, Nancy, as ramp, but she was really asking about a vertical platform lift.
So to speak to that a
And
little
then
bit
just,
more,
Aaron, I want to add to that question because we have another person asking about vertical platform lifts. This is Peggy Heller. Can it be used as an elevator inside a house? So if you'll touch on that as well.
absolutely. So yes, the requirement of a vertical platform lift is 4-inch rebar reinforced concrete up to 3,500. It has to be 3,500 psi. Um, Pressure rating. And so oftentimes, maybe when we're installing a vertical platform lift and it has to go up to, say, an exterior deck or patio, we will pour that concrete pad. And so if we're not absolutely sure that the concrete that we're looking at, maybe it's in disrepair, if we're looking at that and it's not to grade, then we will have to pour another pad. As far as vertical platform lifts installed in the home, it is possible. You do see vertical platform lifts installed in the home. There are going to be a number of additional regulatory issues that will come from that. So if we are going to use a vertical platform lift that's going to go through a floor to a secondary level, that will be regulated like a home elevator. It will require a number of components of compliance for a correct shaft way or hoist way for an elevator. Additionally, we're going to have to look at the floor of the house. Oftentimes, a vertical platform lift cannot just sit on like a main floor when there's a basement underneath with no reinforcement. Sometimes that's going to require a structural engineer actually to draw out what the reinforcement specifications should be. Moving into sort of this new world of residential elevators, which we will touch on, there's a number of residential elevators that function a little bit better than your standard vertical platform lift for that level to level ascent in the home. So we'll touch on that in just a little bit, but a great question. And it is something you see. You definitely see vertical platform lifts installed in a home. That is possible. While we're inside the show home here, we've got a couple stair lifts set up here. You know, stair lifts have come such a long way. There's so many sort of different models of stair lifts, different seat styles and drive systems. But conceptually, we're going to talk about two types of stair lifts today. We're going to talk about straight stair lifts and then curved stair lifts. Behind me are two curved stair lifts, two different brands of curved stair lifts. But curved stair lifts are interesting because you can you can have a curved stair lift that is custom made for the staircase that you have. So if it's a complicated staircase that makes a couple of turns, perhaps a radial bend where it's just a constant turn the whole staircase, a curved stair lift is a great option. And it can be custom made for the house where that rail has been form fitted because of the very specific measurements taken by the home access specialist. Or there is modular curved stair lifts where there are sections of rail that are sort of prefabricated and then the lift can be assembled in place. So it's just good to be aware of those two different types of curved stair lifts. Typically, a modular curved stair lift will work a little bit slower. It's not going to be quite as fast as a custom curved stair lift. There's some thinking that the stair lift is doing as it's traveling. However, it can be installed much quicker because those parts can be warehoused. Whereas a custom curved stair lift will typically have a better ride, a smoother ride. It'll be a little bit more form fitted to the staircase, but it'll have a little longer lead time for the order. And so those are also things that we're going to work with the clinicians as well as the patients themselves and the homeowners to identify what's the most important thing that that stair lift needs to accomplish. Is it speed to install, or is it, a smooth ride? Is it accommodating that stair lift in a little tighter space on the staircase? These are all things that we're going to consider. If I go right this way, I'm actually going to display a couple of stair lifts for you. I like this straight stair lift we have set up here. We just talked a little bit about curved stair lifts, but all stair lifts have a few things in common. A stair lift is going to have a chair which rides on top of a chassis. Underneath the chassis is going to be a footrest. The whole mechanism is going to ride on a rail system. This rail system is actually mounted to the stair tread itself. These foot plates are actually screwed on the top of the stair tread. So there's really no reinforcement of walls. Nothing is mounted to the wall, which really does go a long way in making a stair lift very easy to install, very quick to install. Especially in the case of straight stair lifts, where the rails don't make any kind of bends, these stair lifts can always be warehoused and the rails can be cut to fit so that we can get to an installation very quickly, often within 7 days and much sooner than that in many cases. So a straight stair lift is just a great way to get that access to somebody very quickly. Now, when I use the stair lift, I'm going to be sitting down in the chair. Oftentimes, I'll be using a seat belt. Most stair lifts will operate without the seat belt being locked in. However, there are stair lifts that would require the seat belt to be in the lock position for the lift to move. On the lift itself is going to be some sort of button or paddle or switch that is going to be constant pressure that I'm going to be holding down the entire time for the chair to begin to move to ascend those stairs or descend those stairs. You'll notice that my back is to the banister or the wall as I'm riding up. So I'd be looking at the other side of my staircase as I'm going up the stairs. But when I get to the top, what I want to do is unbuckle myself, and I want to utilize the swivel actuator bar to unlock the seat and to swivel the chair and lock it in place so that now my feet are on the landing. The chair itself is blocking my body from being able to fall down the stairs, and I'm able to get up off of the chair and continue on my way. Stair lifts are great because they can be folded up in place. You can fold up the seat, the armrests, and the footrests in order to give clearance to other people in the home who might want to ambulate up and down the stairs the old-fashioned way, so to speak. Now, some of that does require some level of mobility that certain people don't have. That's why most stair lift manufacturers are going to add things like a power swivel seat, where the chair is going to swivel utilizing a motor instead of utilizing any kind of body power to do that swivel. This is another thing we oftentimes will work with clinicians on, and sort of a long-term prognosis of what is going on with that person to see if, maybe I can swivel a chair now, but maybe it's unlikely I will be able to months or years from now. Love a power swivel seat for those times where it's really hard to swivel that body. Another thing you're going to see oftentimes with stair lifts is the ability to add a power folding footrest. One thing we don't want people doing necessarily is leaning over the top of a staircase in order to fold up a footrest. You can, generally speaking, add a button or some other a switch, or in the case of this stair lift, you lift up the seat and the footrest folds up automatically. It's a power folding footrest. So these are features that can be added to stair lifts to really be more custom towards the user to make it a safer experience. You know, a lot of times now, stair lifts can come in different colors. You can utilize different brands of stair lifts to meet certain needs, but they're becoming smaller. They're becoming more compact. They're becoming a little, arguably, more aesthetically pleasing, which is solving a lot of the issues that people had where I don't want to block off my staircase or I don't like the way the stair lift works. And so we just love how much stair lifts have come along and they keep getting better. So they're getting better all the time. Here, I'm just going to display this curved stair lift. Again, a curved stair lift is going to come in a couple of different forms. It's going to come in that modular system that can be installed sort of in place, or a custom stair lift that works nicely and smoothly around corners. This is just a great way to display the way that stair lift is going to work if you have some curves in your stairs. So we love that. It's phenomenal. And you might be thinking there's so many people that we work with, especially so many of the clinicians on this webinar today, where it's like, it's going to be very difficult for a person to transfer from their wheelchair to a stair lift. Maybe the goal ultimately is to provide as much independence as possible for that patient. And so if we need vertical access in the home, much like we were talking about with a vertical platform lift, these new residential elevators, especially these through floor designs that do not require a shaftway, can be utilized to give someone in a wheelchair that independent access simply by rolling into the cab, which you'll notice on this particular through floor elevator, there's a little ramped front entryway so that we can roll into this cab. This particular elevator will hold 500 pounds. It's large enough to accommodate somebody in a manual wheelchair. And then the person can simply push a button, and then they will actually travel through the floor or the ceiling from the bottom looking up, through the floor, through the ceiling, up and away to that next level. Now, an elevator like this is different than a vertical platform lift because it utilizes a floor plug on the top, which actually closes off that penetration in the floor. So you don't have to build a shaftway like you would with a typical vertical platform lift. This solves the problem of not needing to build the hoistway in order to install the lift. Now, typically, these through floor lifts are great for going from one floor to the next. If you need something that is able to do a little bit more than that, then you might be looking at something like a more traditional elevator, where we are building a shaft in the home. There will be a pit in the foundation, but you're able to enter the elevator. It'll hold 1,000 pounds, up to 15 square feet of space, and can go up to 5 floors. So there's certainly things that can be done to give that independence. Now, we'll definitely be weighing some of these things with maybe speed to install. Something like a traditional residential elevator is going to take more time. Maybe cost. We really want to consider cost on some of these things, whether or not it's going to fit in that person's budget. But just awareness over the fact that residential elevators exist. They can be an alternative to something like a stair lift, but maybe it's a stair lift is what we need. And just knowing that someone like myself, a home access specialist, in conjunction with those clinicians, we can really take a scientific clinical approach to identifying what is going to be the best equipment for a person, the safest thing we can install, keep those people at home without readmissions into the hospital, and just a long and happy and healthy life in a home. I'm running out of time a little bit. Next webinar, we're going to do a super deep dive into bathroom safety. But just to give you a little bit of preview, we would be talking about things like using durable medical equipment in a tub to deal with the lip of a tub to help somebody access that bathing area by utilizing durable medical equipment. Maybe we're doing a tub to shower conversion, or we're taking that tub out. We're installing something like this step-in shower with a very small threshold to step in and out of the shower. We'll be talking about things like the ease of utilizing grab bars to look at those pain points and those areas where we might need something to grab onto and utilizing the right type of equipment for that, like an actual grab bar as opposed to a toilet paper holder or a towel rod as your your point of contact, which can be so dangerous. We'll talk about that. We'll also do a little deeper dive into things like barrier-free showers and how something like a roll-in shower is great for people who are, maybe in a wheelchair full time, maybe people who are planning to age in place and want to get ahead of any of those mobility challenges they might anticipate coming in their future, or they're just ready and they want to be set. They want the home that they raised their kids in to be ready for them to live in for the rest of their lives, like most of us want to do. A roll-in shower can be one of those things. So I'll be very excited to present a lot more of this bathroom safety information to you on the next webinar. I'm going to be here for you guys to answer any more questions that might come up as we wrap up this webinar with Amy. And with that, Amy, I will throw it back to you.
Thank you, Aaron. We do have a follow-up question here from Nancy. And she was the one talking about the PSI and the vertical platform lift in the home. And just if you could comment about from the basement concrete to the first floor is really what she was thinking about.
Well, certainly the foundation of a basement is generally going to be strong enough to hold a vertical platform lift. Now, there are some caveats to that. You might have a typical foundation, which would be a slab on grade, just a big, thick piece of concrete that is the whole foundation of the house, very common in basements. You might have a situation where you have an engineered foundation. And in an engineered foundation, what you might have is just a little bit of concrete that's actually poured on a substructure that is framed over a crawl space. In those cases, I will always engage a structural engineer depending on the equipment that I'm talking about. And so for something like a residential elevator or even a vertical platform lift, if I'm not certain that it is a slab on grade foundation, that I might be dealing with an engineered foundation, I will in those cases utilize a structural engineer to get the proper advice as to what we need to do to that foundation in order to install that equipment. And with engineered foundations, it is not uncommon to have to do some work to that foundation at the elevator location in order to install safely a residential elevator, or in some cases a vertical platform lift. Such a good question, Nancy. Very good.
And we have a couple other questions that we'll answer live from Robin. We'll do that at the end of the webinar. Aaron, stand by. Really, really helpful information, super deep, knowledgeable information. And it was exciting to hear some of those new technologies that you're sharing, the through the floor elevator and the modular curved stair lifts. And so I know with the feedback last year in the survey, new technologies were a big thing. And so I really appreciate you sharing those.
My pleasure, Amy. We'll see you in a little bit.
Okay, we'll see you soon. All right, just want to make sure that everyone can still see the screen. We're going to jump into a case study here. Let me just adjust something. Da, 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 da. Okay. So this case study, this is about a veteran who owns a condo building up in Maryland. And he had a challenge because the residents, I think he has 6 residents there, that it's in a 6-unit condominium. He noticed that many of those tenants were facing mobility challenges and really were struggling to navigate those stairs. And there's no elevator in the space in the building. And that really increased those safety concerns. He knew a solution was needed. And so he found Lifeway Mobility, and a custom curved stair lift was installed. And I'll show you that now. And really that was, offering that safe and practical and really a cost-effective way for all 6 of the families to freely enjoy their spaces. So here is the custom stair lift that was done. Obviously focused on that safety and compliance and long-term reliability. So they had to meet fire and city permitting. I saw someone here from the fire department, I believe, in Colorado Springs, so welcome. So we had to meet those requirements, and we documented the lift's built-in audible alert system, which can prevent it from being left in that mid-stair area. And then we provided detailed safety information to the fire department and city councils as well. So we also educated the residents on the proper use of the stair lift. We provided extra remotes so they could call it to them or return it to the charging station. We included a manual for everyone if there's an override that needs to happen, any ongoing maintenance, and any plan to prevent that downtime, essentially. So this was a commercial installation for this curved stair lift, and it took about 4 months from start to finish. But through that strong collaboration with the property team and the residents, we were able to help those 6 families remain safely in their home. So this is really about that long-term aging in place, and someone identifying that there was a problem before there was that crisis. So in summary, as we close today, let's come back to that big picture. The falls are increasing, but the good news, they're preventable. The highest risk areas in the home are predictable. Those stairs, those entrances and bathrooms, is exactly what Erin went over today. Those are the challenge areas. The solutions can be simple, can be a grab bar, it could be railings, or more involved, it could be a ramp, a stair lift, a curved stair lift, and either bathroom remodels or bathroom safety equipment. The key isn't just the solution, it really is the timing. So the earlier we intervene, the more independence we preserve. As clinicians and professionals serving older adults, you are often the first to notice the warning signs. So your role really is to recognize that risk and start the conversation, and then connect clients to trusted professionals before that fall happens. Again, when we plan proactively instead of reactive, we preserve that dignity and that independence and that safety. And I just want to thank all of you for the work that you do to make aging in place possible and your interest in it. One thing, there's always, the big hot question is, how do people pay for this kind of stuff? And so we understand that cost is often the first concern. And while most home modifications are not covered by Medicare, there are funding pathways that may help. So that can include a local grant, a state program, there's VA benefits, there's financing options. Our team will help anybody explore what they may qualify for. So this really is about clinical instinct when we think about home safety and empowering independence. If you're seeing a patient who now needs assistance on the stairs, has had repeated falls at the home, or has transitioned to a walker or a wheelchair, that's often your cue that the environment may not be keeping up with their functional changes. So in the bathroom, if they are stepping over that tub wall unsafely or struggling with shower transfers, or using, as Erin mentioned, towel bars or even furniture like walls as well for support. Those are clear safety concerns. And if a caregiver is reporting strain during bathing, that's another important signal. So from a discharge perspective, if the stairs or the if stairs or entry steps are delaying safe return home, or you're concerned that the home setup could compromise progress, that's the right time to involve a specialist like us. At the end of the day, if the home environment is limiting independence, that's where home access professionals can help. So this slide highlights, if you're thinking of someone that you're working with today, this is how simple the referral process is. What you're seeing here is an example of a QR code card. You can keep these at your desk or in your therapy gym or provide them directly to a patient or a client. When the code is scanned, they complete a brief form and our team follows up directly to discuss their situation and schedule that free home consultation. That ensures they receive a call and a personalized conversation about how we may help or how we might be able to help. So if you'd like a QR code card or a magnet for your team, this is our outreach team in specific areas, and hopefully you recognize some of these faces. Simply connect with them and they'll make sure that you have them available. Again, our goal is to make it easy for you to connect your patients, your clients to the right support when the need arises or before the need arises. So I'll briefly show you our current footprint. I believe someone was asking earlier about New Jersey. So this is our, we're expanding, and the blue states indicate where Lifeway is currently actively serving clients today. Those white markers are our current branch locations within each state. And the green markers are highlighting our new markets that are coming in 2026. So what's important for you to really know is that Lifeway, we have a really strong coverage nationally, and we're continuing to expand to better support people in all of the areas in the state, in the country. So if you're located in one of these regions, we likely have a local team available. And if you're in a market where we're growing, we actively are building that infrastructure so that we can ensure that responsiveness and continuity of care. If you're ever unsure about coverage, your local outreach representative can confirm service areas pretty quickly. So before we close, I do want to briefly highlight our 2026 series. This series this year will run every other month. It will give you consistent opportunities to stay engaged throughout the year. There are 3 courses, so each course is offered twice, and you have the opportunity to earn up to 3 CEUs or received certificates of attendance if you prefer. If today's session was valuable, we hope you'll join us again. I see some same names that are joining us every month that we do this, and I really appreciate you attending. But yeah, attend and come for the rest of the series. You can scan this QR code that is maybe kind of tiny for you on the screen, or just visit our website and you can register for the next one. Again, we are very committed to providing all of this practical, accessible education and hoping that it supports your work. So before we officially close, some people may have come on later, and I went over this information in the beginning, and I want to make sure that at the bookend on the other side that we're going over it again. So before, it's a quick note on the CEUs and the certificates. So to qualify, you must attend for 35 minutes today, and then you have to submit your request within 30 days. You will receive a follow-up email with all of these instructions. Good news, we have simplified the process, and this is based on the year-end survey that you gave us feedback. So now you will have a self-serve form, and once you complete that, you'll automatically receive your certificate by email. No more going in and logging into this different portal and answering questions and downloading. That was one of the big pieces of feedback, and so we're pleased to make it easier. So this year, you'll have two options: a formal CEU certificate for $17 or a free certificate of attendance. And so we introduced the $17 fee this year simply to cover our hard accreditation costs, and we tried to make it as minimal as possible. So that is the only purpose of the charge, and we're pleased to offer this education. We want to offer this continually. We believe in it, and I hope that you appreciate it as well. So that is it for the webinar. As far as the full content, I wanted to bring back Erin. We have about 3 minutes left for some questions, but we'll probably stay on longer if you have the time, Erin.
As much time as it takes. I'm here to inform the people.
I love it. I love it. Let's see. What do we got here? Oh, the general costs. What are the general costs for through the floor lifts?
You're probably going to see an equipment cost of through floor lifts in and around $35,000, plus and minus about 10%, depending on size, lifting height. Those would be two of the biggest factors. There will be a construction component to that as well. So it's important to keep that in mind. And those construction costs are going to be very dependent upon the market you're in, sort of construction and labor costs of that market. Here in Denver, we're seeing a through floor framed aperture floor penetration with electrical and phone line that is required. It's going to be around $20,000. So your overall project price on a through floor elevator is going to hover, generally speaking, in the mid 50s.
Okay. Yeah, that's really that's knowing that there's a construction cost, plus the actual elevator cost as well. So that's good. And of course, you offer a free home consultation. This is your specialty area. So if you're in Colorado, Erin can come to your house and give you that free consultation. Here is another, and yeah, thank you for that question. This is a comment from Victor. What a great webinar experience. I wanted you to hear that, Erin.
Thanks, Victor.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Peggy says, I have a question about stair lift for a spiral staircase.
Yes.
That's a good question.
Absolutely. And so spiral staircases are awesome. Architecturally, they're some of the coolest things you can see inside of a home. Now, early spiral staircases like pre-1970s are often very small. You'll see more modern spiral staircases will have stair treads that comply with stair lift code. It's going to be that width of the stair tread itself, which is going to determine whether or not a curved stair lift will be able to function on that spiral staircase. But I know that I've successfully installed numerous curved stair lifts on a spiral staircase. Now, oftentimes curved stair lifts are really priced around how many turns that rail is going to have to accomplish. Your spiral staircase is going to be about as complicated in terms of how many turns are taking place, but one giant continual turn. Your average curved stair lift price point is going to be around $14,000 or $15,000. When you get into a spiral staircase, you can expect that price to jump up quite a bit in the $22,000 to $25,000 range. You need a clear stair tread width, typically speaking, of about 28 inches. Some curved stair lifts now are offering the ability of the chair itself, instead of riding parallel to the wall, the chair will actually turn and give you a little bit narrower application. But certainly it would be important, if we're trying to install a stair lift solution on a spiral staircase, to have someone like myself, a home access specialist, come and just take those specific dimensions so that we can create the right fit, the correct stair lift that can accommodate the size of that particular staircase.
Yeah, and as you're sharing this, I'm thinking of someone that we helped in Dallas, Texas, and we have a picture of the spiral staircase and him riding up. So I might bring that visual so everyone can see it because that really helps you to, see that solution in the home environment. Next question. We've got a few more. Let's say, you're welcome, Peggy. Thank you. Tracy is asking, can you restate the name of the residential elevator that holds 500 pounds and does it go more than one level?
Yes, absolutely. So the elevator that I displayed here is called a Pollock elevator, like the fish, Pollock. That particular elevator comes in three sizes, the largest of which is what we displayed, which can accommodate a wheelchair. These types of elevators, of which there are numerous brands very similar to the Pollock elevator, that utilize that floor plug system, which eliminates the need for a shaft, generally speaking, are only going to work in a two-stop application. That's one floor to the next. Anytime we're going beyond that, we can no longer utilize the floor plug as the sole barrier to having some sort of open shaftway in the home, which is going to require building either a partial or full hoistway. The whole point of a hoistway for an elevator is to prevent somebody from falling into sort of that open vertical space in the home. And so with these through floor lifts that utilize a floor plug, in most cases, those are going to be two-stop applications. Now, there are other freestanding elevators, one example of which would be this pneumatic vacuum tube elevator right here. What's neat about these is that they're through floor elevators, but you're purchasing a shaftway with the cab that travels. So you'll notice in an elevator like this, we have this exterior door that stays at each level, and then we have the interior door.
Hmm.
The exterior door is going to be interlocked. And when the lift is up or down and not in position where the person is, it's going to be locked. You're not going to be able to open that and step into an open hole. And then the purpose of this other door that's going to travel with you is to prevent somebody from being able to touch and scrape along the side of that exterior tube. There's a few different versions of these tubular style freestanding elevators. That's what we're going to look at if we want to go with something a little more freestanding that doesn't require the construction of your more traditional shaftway.
While we're on the elevator subject, Nicole is asking about annual inspection requirements. Is that state dependent or how does that work for residential elevators?
Generally speaking, a residential elevator requires an inspection at installation. However, local authorities may require more inspections than that. Now, here in Colorado, in most jurisdictions, only one inspection at installation is necessary. But I could think of something like the state of Washington, for instance. They have inspections of things like stair lifts, which we don't have. It is quite possible you might have a local authority that would require annual inspections, although that is quite rare, and certainly something we here in Colorado do not have to deal with. But the local licensed residential elevator dealer and installer will know specifically if those inspections are required for you.
You just have it all, Erin. Thank you for all the knowledge you're sharing. This is the last call for any last minute questions. We're about 5 minutes past the webinar time, but I want to leave it open here for another minute. Sounds like we had some great interaction today and great questions, Erin.
Yeah, I just love the fact that we do the questions as the webinar is going. I know early on in this, sometimes we would hold and wait for questions till the end, but I think the engagement and just the ability for people to get that question answered right away, and then they can enjoy the rest of the webinar with that information having
Yeah.
been answered is awesome.
Yeah, and also for the other attendees to get that information
Oh,
too.
for
So
sure. For
keep
sure.
putting your questions in when we do this. One question we just got another one. Gail is asking the width of the circular elevator door.
That is a great question, Gail. Now, as is the case with most versions of these kind of tubular elevators, the door entrance width it's going to be a function of the diameter of the tube. So there are some of these where the exterior diameter is only a total of about 30 inches. In those cases, the door entry width is only 17 and a half, 18 inches wide. Now they vary from that to wheelchair accommodating models that can be, on average 52 to 60 inches in diameter. So a fairly large tubular elevator. And then those door entrance widths are going to be closer to that 32 to 36 inches in clear width. To make that accessible for someone in a wheelchair. But certainly, one big thing that we have to identify when we're recommending a residential elevator for a client who wants to add that for aging in place or maybe just the aesthetics of the home, is we want to identify what their goals are in terms of using that elevator, perhaps with mobility equipment. Elevators like this particular one is 37 inches in diameter. Even getting a walker into the elevator is going to be tremendously difficult. And with most walkers, you're not going to be able to do it. So just making sure that we're installing the correct size elevator for the application of that homeowner, for that patient, that's going to be really what makes the difference for somebody.
The other new question, and I know you've had personal experience with this one, is do we install the lift that converts from a lift into the steps or steps into a lift?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we've definitely done that before with those um, uh, what they're called.
The
The
lift.
flex step?
Flex Step.
That's
Thanks, Amy Goff, with the assist. Oh my gosh. So that's the only brand of that I know of. It's quite like a transformer where you have a set of steps that actually convert into a platform that can then raise and lower vertically. Very flexible for the space. Flex steps. Keep that at the top of the mind. The only issue with the flex steps that I can see is the relative cost for that to a vertical platform lift. A flex step, it probably averages in price at about $30,000. And as for a $30,000 device to get you from your garage into your house, that takes a very motivated person to purchase one of those. Whereas a typical vertical platform lift is going to be around $11,000. What we often might do with that is we will install the platform lift and build a little platform that has stairs going to one side. So you have a platform going up to the platform lift that goes to the platform on one side, plus stairs on the other side so that other people in the house don't have to use the platform lift. That's going to be, well under half the price of the Flex Step. Although the Flex Step is perhaps one of the coolest things that you could own. They're super cool. There's no doubt about
Yeah.
that. So we all hope that a bunch of competition comes in designing more things like that, so we can get that cost down a little bit on those flexible step platform lifts.
Yeah, they're beautiful and very functional. And to your point, I saw in one of our clients' homes in Denver, Colorado, they were very motivated, as you stated, to have something that really looked very beautiful. And it did. And they knew that they wouldn't be in that home forever, but they needed it. And they knew the resale value of that would actually go up because now you've got a two-in-one opportunity, if anything ever happened that, someone would need to use that elevator, not just for accessibility, maybe for things, as you're moving
Well,
things in and out of the home too.
that's exactly right, Amy. I mean, I think we're thinking of the same client. So I had a client in Denver that did do the
Yeah.
flex steps along with an elevator, which really exemplifies kind of as a home access specialist, what we're looking at when we're trying to make recommendations for somebody, I think in that case, the gentleman had Parkinson's, or I think it was Parkinson's, and the situation was is that things were deteriorating. So we want to look, just an elevator may not solve the entirety of access in the home. And so with these particular clients, they easily could afford an elevator, they could afford a vertical platform lift, and they just wanted something with sort of that dual function that you're talking about. And so just being aware as a home access specialist of the many different styles of equipment that exist so that we can kind of create the right fit based on utility or budget or those kinds of things. I think it's something that requires really a clinician to engage with a home access specialist. That's really what we're good at, sort of knowing what's available to solve those problems.
Yeah, I love that. Well, on my clock, it says 11:11, and I know that's a superstitious number. So we'll just wrap it up here. Aaron, thanks for staying after. I know we have quite a few people still on. Just want to thank you. I saw the ALS Association, several people here today. Just want to thank you. And of course, everyone from all different states I saw. We just appreciate you, and hopefully we'll see you in a couple months. Aaron, we've got a couple people just saying they appreciate the education. It was really great. So hopefully Kaylee and Nicole will see you again. Thanks, everyone.